stepping up to the half marathon on the Do Hard Things Today podcast. All right, we are back with you on the Do Hard Things Today podcast, and we are finally racing. I've got my friend, obviously, Hal Morris is here with us. He had a good little race this past week, and we got Jim Bowen, first-timer on the podcast. He said the downloads are going to go through the roof since he's here with us today.
I told Hal I needed to increase that bandwidth.
We're going to increase the bandwidth. But, man, it felt good to be racing. We ran a 5K. It was a St. Patrick's Day 5K. This past weekend, and it just felt good to be back on the race course. Did you feel the energy? Was it good to be back out there?
There was a lot of people.
A lot of people.
350 to 400,
mm-hmm.
I guess.
Yep. And just a lot of energy. It just gives you hope that maybe we're going to have a full race season this year. But today on the podcast, we're going to be talking to Hal and Jim. They're stepping up into the half marathon realm. We're all, a good group of us are going down, and we're going to be doing the Myrtle Beach Half Marathon. Most of you know Myrtle Beach is a resort area. No matter where you're from in the United States, a lot of people go there. Right, wrong, or indifferent, no matter what you think of it, it's a pretty well-known beach community here in the state of South Carolina. But they always have a big marathon and half marathon weekend, and so we're going down. That's May 1st. We'll be going down to do that. And so we wanted to take an opportunity to be able to talk to you about training for a half marathon. The podcast is going to be kind of two parts, almost three parts, all mashed in together. We're going to be talking how do you go from whether you're coming from the couch or whether you can comfortably run a 5K, step up into that half marathon distance for the first time. What does that training look like? We're going to talk to Hal and Jim specifically about what they're doing. You'll probably be able to relate to some of the things that they're going through as they train and prepare for their half marathon. And then finally, we'll be doing a little bit of a course preview and race preview for the Myrtle Beach Marathon. So as you know all the places you can find us. Hal's got us everywhere. You can find us anywhere. Podcast are. Find our Facebook page, Do Hard Things Today. We've got a group that you can join. We talk nutrition and those kind of things. All that stuff can be found in the show notes. But we're going to jump right into this thing. First thing I want to do is for Jim and Hal, just give us a quick rundown of your 5K race. I know Hal, you had for those of you that listen to the podcast and follow along, Hal, you're a pretty recent runner. When did you start really running? Been a year now?
Yeah, about a year.
Yeah.
But getting ready for these triathlons, of course, I was signed up for Augusta last year, so it was in September. It was supposed to be in September 2020, so I had really started the running May, June last year, stepping up the running for Augusta.
Yeah, and you've seen some tremendous progress, and I think you finished you were what was your time?
26:45.
So it was eight what mile?
8:37.
8:37. He's going to exactly know what it is. He's the engineer guy. So so it was an 8:37 pace. And so tell people what your pace was, even say 6 months ago, that you were running at.
Oh, it was definitely double digits, 10, 11.
Yeah. I mean,
10, 11, 12.
He made tremendous progress on that.
Yeah, I did a virtual half here for Hub City runners. The virtual half we did just up and down the rail trail. Just a fun race, and I think I did it in a pace of 10:13 or 10:15.
Yeah, good. So you really improved that pace. And now Jim, you give a little bit of background about your running, because we're going to go into that whenever we talk about going to the half marathon. But Jim, I think you've always been a fast runner, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you've kind of been in that 3 mile distance is what you've enjoyed this. So talk a little bit about your running journey, when you started, if you have a background in it, and a little bit about your race on Sunday.
Sure. So never was a much of a runner. I played sports through high school, so that was kind of my way of staying active, was through just playing sports, all different sports. So I was busy all year long. Then get into college, that stops, and all the activity stops, right? Like everybody else in college. Then after college, you start a career. You get to those 9-to-5 jobs. Then you start having kids, and you just never find time to do any sort of workout or any way to stay in shape. I finally reached the point, maybe 10 years ago, I said, you know what, I've got to find a way to start getting active again. Still at that point, never was much of a runner. Just joined a gym, just doing some interval-style training, did that for a few years. And then I would just kind of mix in running on the side, just kind of a way to, if I couldn't get to the gym, I'd go running. And my knowledge of running was put on a comfortable pair of tennis shoes, shorts, and a T-shirt, and just go run. And when you get tired, stop. There was no sort of guidance, no sort of coaching there. And so I just kind of was running off and on for the past few years. It wasn't really until this past summer my daughter got more active in running. She would go out and run with the group every morning in the summer. And I was sitting there and I thought, well, what better way for me to start running than just run while they're running? So started ramping up my running a little bit then, but just kind of like you said, stuck in that 3 to 4 mile range. I just never would push beyond 4 miles. Just never felt like it. And then my pace would always I would always keep my pace, because it was always in my mentality is, if I'm going to run, I'm going to run as fast as I can. And then I started finding myself with injuries pop up, the tendonitis and the ankles and the knees and the hips and all that kind of stuff. Realized then, okay, maybe it's time to invest in a better pair of shoes or those kind of things, a better pair of socks, start pacing myself a little more in my runs. So that's just kind of been my journey at this point, until I've always had in the back of my mind that maybe I did want to do something longer than a 5K. I've done several 5Ks over the years, but never anything more than that. I have done one, I take that back. I have done one 10K, 5-6 years ago or something like that, but never beyond that. But it wasn't until recently I said, you know what, I think I can do this half marathon distance, and it started to try to, structure my runs around, maybe working toward that goal. So that's kind of where I am now. In my running journey, my distance have started to increase a little bit. I've been smarter with help from not just you, Kevin, but just joining the local running group here. Meeting a lot of good people that way that can help guide you through your running journey too. Just giving you pointers and helping you stay injury free as you move forward. So that's kind of where I am at this point. So
yeah, and Jim's kind of guy that he's the kind of runner that we all like to hate. I mean, he goes out and just run and can just he's just a good runner. He's a faster runner.
He's like a deer. I've run with him at the Hub City run groups.
Yep.
For how many weeks now?
And we got about a month or so.
Yeah, about a month. We got canceled last night, but he's awesome.
Yeah,
and he's been kind of bearing with me. I've been doing my interval training, so he's been kind of going along with me and another guy named James that they kind of bear and kind of going along with what a program I've been doing. So,
and how'd your 5K go?
It went well. I mean, it was not the goal, but I did it 21:30.
Yeah. And just give a little perspective, those of you that listen that are close around, you'll know the course we're talking about, that same one that's the July 4th, the beer run in July 4th, and then the run to the Rainbow. It's in the same place. It is a tough course, very, very tough course. You're basically the last mile of the 5K is straight uphill. You just run uphill. So it was an extremely tough course that we did get on. I had my goal was 28, and my real push goal was 27, and I think I finished 27:11 and 27:11 or 27:15, one of those two. But had a good race, felt good about it. That's actually that's a 3-minute improvement from July. Now the July race there was 100 degrees too, so that had something to do with it. But a good race for a lot of us that were out there. But we're going to talk about some of those things, because a lot of you are probably in the same spot. And when they really started their half marathon training, you're going to find yourself kind of in the same spot they are. Maybe you've trained for some other things, and it's time you just want to jump up to that next distance, or maybe you've been a really good runner but you've kind of been, where recreationally, where like kind of Jim was he's a really good runner, fast runner in that that 3 to 4 mile range, but never really had a plan for, okay, what's involved next. And what Jim's finding out, and what we'll talk about in during the podcast, is it's a significant jump. There's 2 significant jumps you make in running, and they're natural jumps, and depending on if you want to go to these different distances. But you go from that kind of beginner runner into that 5K race. Some people love the 5K, and that's where they want to be. They want to be super fast 5Kers, and they go out there. I would rather run a marathon than a hard 5K. I told them after the run, if you really run a 5K like you're supposed to run it, you're pretty much running as hard as you can for 3 miles.
It's a brutal distance.
It's just a brutal distance.
Yeah.
And I was, I was sore. I was sore for 2 days. I was sore, and I ran a half marathon a couple of weeks before that, and I felt like $1 million the next day. So it is don't get in the habit of basing, well, what kind of a runner are you based on what distance you're doing. They all offer different challenges and rewards. But for you make that move then from the 5K up to that half marathon distance, and Jim's already hit on some of the things that you start talking about, injury and these other things. Anytime you're adding more mileage, and it's not just mileage on that race, you're adding a lot more mileage in training, the risk of injury just goes up. And then the next progression for people that they do a half marathon, and then do I want to jump up into that full marathon distance? But anytime you're adding mileage, there's just a lot of things that go with that you have to be cognizant of, and we're gonna talk about some of those. So first of all, though, why for you guys? How you've done the virtual, you've done the 10K. Why jump to the 13.1?
Well, to be honest, I wasn't going to do this one.
Well, that's right. I know your answer. Your answer's a sad answer.
I know. I wasn't going to do this one. So I was signed up to do the assault on Mount Mitchell, and that was supposed to be May 17th. So I had just started training for it. I'd done a couple long climbing training rides on the bike to do Mount Mitchell, and it got canceled a couple weeks ago. So I always knew all along that the Myrtle Beach was probably going to be plan B because Jill, my wife, and a bunch of them are going down, so it'll be a fun time. So really it was the secret to success is having a plan B. So I'll be doing the half as a plan B to make up for not being able to do.
I didn't mean
Mount
to
Mitchell.
peel that scab off. Only happy thoughts today on the podcast. Right?
That's right. So a little disappointed on Mount Mitchell, but it'll be a fun weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will be.
So.
Jim?
I think it's just that next challenge. You know, like I said, I've done one 10K, but running those 5K races, I feel like I don't think I've met my max on what I could do as fast as I can do, but I just want that next challenge. And just in running, my mileage slowly increasing, I want that challenge of being able to say I've done that half marathon.
And we showed up to dinner one night, and he was like, "Did you look at my Strava?" No, I think Marcy said, "Did you look at his Strava?" And he's like, he ran 10 miles a day. And I think you just you didn't plan on going out and running 10 miles a day.
No, I didn't. No.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that 10-mile run, because if everything you don't want to do in a 10-mile run,
I did it.
He did it.
Yeah.
He did it in that one. But so let's talk about your anxieties and your fear. It's anytime you jump to that next distance, you've never been there before, you're always going to question a little bit. What's the biggest, I don't know if anxiety or fear is the right word, but that's the one we're going to use, that you have for this distance of a race?
I mean, for me, it's just my ability to do it well. You and I have had this conversation before. I've never been one to do it just to say that check the box. I want to make sure I can do it and do it well. So for me, it's that mental. We've talked about my goal before of what I want to be able to do this in. So can I achieve that goal? Is that goal achievable for me? And I never was going to sign up for that race until I believed that goal is achievable. Mm-hmm. I think you shared with me there's two different types of runners when it comes to this half. Those folks that go out, maybe they train 6-7 miles and then they just go do the half marathon and hit that 13.1 mark. And then others who train to that distance and beyond, just to know mentally they can do it. Well, I'm in the latter category. I want to make sure I can do that distance. So that kind of came that run you were talking about, that long run, but not just do it. I want to be able to do it well. So that's the mental side for me. I know I can hit the distance. I'm not worried about that. It's the time.
And don't say your goal till the end.
All right.
I'm gonna save y'all's goal. How?
I think for me it's, I did the virtual last year, so it'll be my first really full half marathon, and of course I'm signed up to do Augusta in September, which the tail end, the run on it's a half. So I want to go out and run a good half in Myrtle Beach just to see where I'm at in preparation for Augusta. So you kind of use it as a benchmark.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the training and just some things that I found are beneficial, and I want you guys to jump in as we're discussing these. But I think the first one that when you're training for a half marathon, I think you do have to decide what are you trying to do. You know, Jim, you hit on it. For many people, they want to, hey, I want to be able to say I did a half marathon. For others, it's like, I want to really train and go, and I want to race my half marathon. And hear me, racing a half marathon is different for everyone. For me, that's a different thing than it is for somebody who may be a faster runner. It's when I say race a half marathon, you're going out and you're racing yourself. I want to get myself to be able to run this as fast as I can. Train to do that. And those are two different things and two different training styles. And so I think it's important when you're out from this, because you need to make that decision. You know, ideally, 3 months out, you need to make that decision, because that's going to determine your training. I think you can comfortably train for a half marathon if you're in relatively decent shape. And when I say coming off the couch, I mean you're coming off the couch, but you're in relatively decent shape. I mean, you're not completely out of shape. I think 10 weeks is a gracious plenty to be able to get ready to do one. Now, to be able to train to perform your best, you need to have a running base coming into. There's a lot of things that go into that. So you need to decide that, and then mentally, I think it's important. And we talked about this when we did the Dopey Challenge podcast, and I got a lot of feedback when I said this about that it helped people really get their mind around it on both sides. Don't underestimate a half marathon, but don't overestimate the half marathon challenge. And what I mean by that is a lot of times people will underestimate because it's a half. I was like, oh, it's a half. Well, it's 13 miles.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 13 miles is a long way.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how you skin it, that's a long way. And so don't many times people will look at it and say, well, it's not that bad. I can just gut my way through it. Well, that is a recipe for getting yourself injured and also getting yourself into a point to where you never want to go and run something like that again. So don't underestimate that 13.1 mile distance, but then don't overestimate the challenge as well. Sometimes people look at it and they're just like, I can never do that. I just could never do it. In fact, hopefully your wife's going to be listening to this podcast. How many times has she said that to us over dinner? I
5Ks were max.
Yeah, 5K is my max. I mean, she went and killed that 5K on Sunday.
Yeah.
And so if you listen to this, there's your shout out. But don't overestimate how hard it is. If you will put in the mileage and the training just day after day, there's no question that you can do it. Unless you've got something that physically is causing you to not be able to do it, that there's no doubt that you can do that.
You got to decide you're going to do it, though.
Yep. You got to decide.
You can't halfway think, well, let me see if I can.
Yeah. I mean, you got. It's one of those deals that you got to go all in on. You show up at a 5K, no doubt. People can show up at a 5K and just be like, hey, I'm gonna come and I'm just gonna walk the 5K, and that's fine. You know, you're out there moving, doing it. There are some that you can show up and do that too, but most of them are going to be time based, and you're not going to be able to show up and just walk your way through a half marathon. One of the most lenient half marathons there is at Disney. They give you a 16-minute per mile pace that you got to keep, but still, that is a long time to be out walking on a course. So you have to decide, and then the big thing is base. I call it base. You got to get that base mileage in. So for you two, what was your base coming into this? Just to give people a little perspective, just the Cliff Notes version of what's your base fitness when you started your half marathon training, and more specifically in your running base fitness.
Jim.
I was stuck at that 4 miles. That's what you're talking about. Yeah. I'd hit that 4 mile mark every time I go out. Yep. And if I felt great, maybe I'd go 5. But That was about it.
But that was
I
it.
never could push beyond that.
And really, it was kind of you'd go out and you'd run pretty much hard as you could.
Yeah, hard as I
Yeah.
could. There was no slowing down, pacing. There was none of that. It was just how fast can I go for 4 miles,
Yep.
and then I'll stop.
How?
I really started in November building base, and I'm doing a combination of intervals, easy runs, zone 2 runs, some shuttle type runs, track work, really just building speed during this time, and then I guess as I get closer, more stamina workouts will follow those. So
Yeah.
right now I'm doing either 45-minute runs or up to 55-minute runs.
Do y'all? I don't mean to interrupt you, but you got folks out there listening who maybe they don't run a lot. Maybe they're just starting. Do they understand the terminology zone 2 run? Because that was something that was new to me even a month ago.
Yeah.
And
That-
you know, and zone, sometimes that makes I think Mike, because to me it's a little overwhelming when it started getting explained to me. But you know, I had somebody kind of say, "Well, listen, zone 2 run is a conversation. You can have a conversation while you're running. That should be your zone 2 run. Zone 2 is based on your heart rate."
And that's a good point. And I think in one of the podcasts we just did, I think Coach Kate, I think she mentioned that of, you know, that it is, don't get so caught up in the semantics of it, of it is, I think she used the same thing of you should be able to have a conversation. What a zone 2 run is, that when we talk about building base miles, when you go out and run a zone 2 run, think easy. Think words like it's an easy run.
Mm-hmm.
You can talk. If you're running with somebody, you should be able to carry on a conversation with them without that you're not breathing so heavy. And what's happening there is you're building your aerobic base. Most of you, if you're coming off the couch or you're starting, it's going to be extremely frustrating because you're going to be going super slow. Well, what your body is telling you is that you really have no aerobic base. If you want to be successful in running, you're going to have to do the work to build that aerobic base. Surprisingly, and how I think you saw this happen with yours, how your time improved so much. You know, if you will be consistent in doing that and disciplined, and this is going to sound completely backwards from what most people think, but you've got to be disciplined to go slow.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
And not even folks coming off the couch, but folks like Jim that's been running hard and fast and doesn't know about zone 2. It's going to be even hard to slow down and to do those.
Well,
it seemed counterintuitive what I was trying to do.
Exactly.
When everybody said you got to slow down to go faster.
To go faster.
Well, and that's why I specifically because I specifically put in your plan no faster than this.
Right.
Because I knew you're going to want to run faster.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, it takes me practice, and I'm still practicing at it. I look at my watch a whole lot when I'm running those slower runs.
Yeah.
Because I naturally want to speed up.
Yep.
So I'm forcing myself to slow back down.
And I don't know why. I can't tell you the physiology of it, but if you will do that, what you will also see is you'll see your top end speed get better.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand why that happens, but you will see that happen as you're building your aerobic base. It's almost like you've got your bottom and it's pushing everything up. It's making it so your zone 2 run, your easy run. Were you at like 13 minutes or so when you started? I think I remember that thing when you were
run walk.
Yeah, when you were doing you were doing run walk. And then that is great. So if you went out right now and did a zone 2 easy run, what would that be at now, roughly pace on a flat course?
12.
Yeah. So it's pushing down, and what that does is it. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about some of the other types of runs you got to be doing too, but if somebody said to me, and I'll ask y'all's opinion on this as well, but if somebody said to me, you can only do one kind of running to get ready for a half marathon, what would it be? I'd say zone 2 easy.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time.
We were looking before we started on our podcast that we've done in the rankings. Our zone 2 podcast is number 3
Oh, wow.
of number of downloads.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. And it's maybe it's because it's misunderstood, but again, it doesn't make sense, but if you'll discipline yourself to do that, you'll see those things come through. So let's talk about the kinds of runs that you're doing in that. Obviously, the long run is going to be. I think there's really two main types of runs you're going to do in training. You're going, if you look at the course of a week's time, my belief is you can really have 2 hard runs in a week. That's the maximum amount of hard effort runs you can have in a week's time. You can have 4 or 5 runs, but 2 of them are going to be a little bit higher intensity. You got a tempo run and then your long run. Your tempo runs, again, that's sometimes that can be an intimidating term, but it's really not. This is where you'll warm up and then you'll run at a tempo. And that tempo, just think pace. You're running at, say, some tempo runs may be at your 5K pace, where you're doing a 6 to 8 mile run. Maybe you do a 1.5 miles easy and then a 1.5 miles cool down. So that's 3 of those miles. Then you may run 3 miles to 5 miles at a 5K or a 5K plus 30 pace. So where if your 5K pace is 8 minutes, then you would be running at an 8:30 pace. Then you would cool down again. Tempo runs can involve intervals, those kind of things. Basically, where you're running at your slower pace, and then you pick up the pace inside of the run. So you'll run some mile intervals, some things like that. Have those? I know you just started doing those.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've been doing those.
That's what our Wednesday night runs are, the tempo runs.
Yeah.
So how have those? Tell us about some of those runs, and let's explain them a little bit better to the audience of what some of those runs look like. And these runs are going to be more your midweek, early week runs. Your long runs are generally going to be on the weekends.
I can just go through my whole week. Tuesdays for me, on the program, I do a 45-minute easy run. Zone 2, for me, it's 12-minute plus per mile. Nothing over, for me, 55 years old, 128, 130 beats a minute heart rate. Just an easy, chill run. Wednesday is my tempo run, based on my run threshold. And so we'll do an 8-minute warm-up and just typical something we might run, Jim, 7 minutes. We'll run 7 minutes at hard, a good 8:30 pace for us, maybe, something like that. And then a 2-minute rest or a 1-minute rest. They're getting longer and shorter rest the way we've been going along. But so
rest doesn't mean stop either.
No, it's just a slower pace for 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever. But that's loaded at the front of the run. Those intervals are. So typically you'll do that, and you do your 8-minute warm up, the tempo section, and then the last 20-25 minutes are back to easier zone 2 type run. Although we don't stick strictly that. We go a little bit faster, but so that's
let me stop you right there though.
Yeah,
that is, and there's nothing like running a group. Running in groups are awesome. But they can also, especially if it's a bunch of guys, they can also cause you to jump into that gray zone because you're like, because in your mind you're still thinking, well, if we're going faster, that's going to be better.
Yeah,
that's going to be, and then the egos start getting, it's like, I don't want to slow down. Well, he doesn't want to slow down, and then next thing you know, you're in that dreaded gray zone. By the gray zone, then I'm gonna let you keep going. Is you're on your hard run. There's two big mistakes people make with pace when they're training. Number one, they don't run their hard runs hard enough. They run their hard runs too easy, and they run their easy runs too hard. Listen to that again. 2 biggest mistakes. They run their hard runs too easy and their easy runs too hard. Your hard runs should lay the hammer down on you. I told Jim he's got to run. Come on, I said, dude, it's supposed to hurt. I mean, you should finish it and be like, man, that was bad. That was a rough run. But then on your easy runs, we tend to run them about 1 gear harder than we should, where we're not out there killing ourselves, where we're not like just running as hard as we can, but we're running a little bit harder than we should run, and we don't get that benefit of building that aerobic base. So keep going out.
Yeah. So some of those Wednesday nights, my I go too fast that supposed to be easier period, and I actually get graded on each workout how close I stick to it, so that blows me up sometimes. So that's Wednesday. Then I don't run again till Saturday. I do. I'm using a triathlon program, so I do a 20-minute brick run after a bike, just an easy 20-minute endurance run out and back, just so your legs have, off the bike run.
Yeah.
Get used to that. And then Sunday is either a longer run, or it can also be a intense interval run consisting of like track work, speed work, 20 seconds hard, 20 seconds off, 20 seconds hard, 20 seconds off. We call those MAV shuttles is what those are called. So I alternate. 1 week will be like the high intense speed work, and then next week will be a longer run on Sunday. So I'm running Tuesday, Wednesday, a little bit on Saturday and Sunday. So four runs a week.
Jim, let's talk about yours, and then I'm going to, after you talk about it, I'm going to tell them the difference in yours which is this week, which is a very important week, and I'm going to tell why your schedule is different this week than it has been the other weeks.
Well, there really hasn't been too much planning. I mean, I think the coaching plan that now Kevin has been giving me just started. I think this is only week 2.
Yeah.
So up before previous week, my running, as I said earlier, just consisted of me just going out and running. There was no, I mean, other than the intervals that I would run with Hal on Wednesday night, my running consisted of start running and stop when I was done. So I think last week you had me do a run. It was 10 miles. We did you called it a middle push. So a 2-mile warm up, 6 miles hard at race pace, and then a 2-mile cool down. That's really the only kind of interval running I've done up to this point. So everything else has just kind of been recovery pace and those types of things.
And that's what you're going to be. And there's these are two different people here right now, in that Hal he's really, his A race he's shooting for is probably, you'd consider Augusta, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Okay. So the half marathon, he's not in full out half marathon training right now. He's probably, what's happened with his schedule is it's going to be a little bit more run heavy than it would be in a normal thing, but it's not full out half marathon training. Jim is more in the full out half marathon training. And so what he just explained is what's going to be happening. He's going to have, generally a Monday is going to be an easier run, just getting miles, just getting some easy miles in, probably around 6 miles or so. And all this will be based off of, if you're a slower runner, you're probably not going to be running as many miles, because I like to look at your Monday as more time of about an hour. About an hour is about the most you want to do on a Monday, because Monday you're coming off the weekend. Generally, you've done a longer workout. Then you get into like Tuesday, Wednesday in that range, and that's when you're going to hit your tempo work. That more speed, pushing in those speed intervals and those kind of things. Again, it's not going to be, hey, go out. Now, every now and then you'll have one of the things I like to do with people is, like, I'll do a 10K time trial where, okay, warm up, and then once you warm up, start your clock, do a 10K time trial. Fast as you can run 10K,
Mm-hmm.
Just because that gives you a base of what's that 10K time you look at. But usually you're going to have some interval work in there, tempo work. Then you'll have another type of a run in there, and that one again is going to be more of a zone 2 type of a work. Then you have the long run, and in that long run, that's where you start the majority of your long run is going to be zone 2, that easier pace, and then I like to pepper in some interval work within that. Now this week is a little bit different in like Jim has a 10-miler, and you'll have some of these that are inside of your workouts, and he's going to run it hard, but you have to be very, very cognizant in those runs, because those are the ones that you tend, when you're up in the effort level, the miles are longer, there's just more chance of injury. So you just got to be careful with those type of runs. and you want to build these things up slowly. Now Jim jumped in and just went out and ran. I think he got out of the car and he was like, I may run a mile today. He ran 10. And I was like, well, what? He said, man, he's like, I was all salty. I was like, well, what kind of nutrition were you taking? He said, I didn't take anything in. I'm like, well, just water. He's like, no water, no anything.
Nothing.
You ran 10 miles with nothing.
It was I did 14.
14. Oh, it was 14. Yeah.
So it was 2 hours of running and not a drop of water during the entire thing.
With nothing. And so it's like, man,
that'll change as soon as the humidity.
Well, that goes back to just my, lack of knowledge around it. I just getting on the road and start running, and I'll just stop.
Yep.
I had the intention of running 10 miles that day, and while I was running, I said, you know what? If I really want to do this half marathon, let me find out if I can run that distance. So I kept running, and just eventually stopped at 14. But I'll drink water afterwards.
And that goes to the next thing that is different between running 3 and 4 miles and training to run 13 is your nutrition, and which is it's as big of a piece of the puzzle as the actual physicality of getting out and running. So what you just explained what yours has been up to this point. What have you been doing? What's been?
Yeah, when I did the virtual, I had I did on the rail trail here in Spartanburg where you go down and back. So I placed my vehicle where I could, when I go down and back, where I could get. There was no aid station, so I just ran to the car and grabbed me a Cliff Bar or part of a Cliff Bar at the first, and then I probably ate one Cliff Bar, maybe half after a certain period. I forgot what it was, and then the other half. And then I finished up with a gel near the end to finish it off.
Well, and I've got, as my bullet point here, is practice that nutrition. Because what you're going to find is certain things are going to work for you and certain things are not going to work for you. When you don't want to find out something's not going to work for you on race day. Because when your stomach goes south, you're in trouble. I mean, it really it can really cramp your style, for lack of a better
Dan, don't try anything new on race day.
Nothing new on race day. But what you'll see is, as now we're starting to get more humidity, it's going to start warming up. Not just water. Water is not enough. You've got to take in those electrolytes. We've had podcasts on that before, but and the things that you get at the grocery store and the gas station just aren't enough. I mean, Gatorade and Powerade, they got a little bit of salt in them, but I mean, mainly what they are is just almost like Kool-Aid. I mean, it's the equivalent of Kool-Aid with a little salt thrown into it. I mean, Tailwind is something that people love around here. That seems to work really good for people. It's got electrolytes, it's got the sugars and the other things in it. You need to experiment with these things and then see what your body can handle. Some people can take Cliff Bars and things. They can, bananas and those kind of things. They can take those things in and be able to process them. Other people, they get that stuff and their body does nothing with it because and the reasoning behind that is all your blood is flowing to your legs and it's not able to go to your stomach and help digest your stomach's just not working like it should. So you want to practice those things and on these longer runs, use those longer runs as test sessions. What are you eating before your 13 mile? You got a 13 miler in the morning. What are you going to be eating before you do that
for breakfast? 2 chocolate chip waffles with peanut butter.
Still the chocolate chip waffles.
Yep. I had one before the 5K race.
Yeah.
Last week, I made sure I had at least 2 in the freezer that my son hadn't ate, and so there was at least two. So I made me a peanut butter sandwich with the chocolate chip waffles.
Nice, Jim. No plan.
No plan.
No plan.
No plan.
You want to, and you can
Pop-Tart, does that count?
Yeah, Pop-Tart.
Pop-Tarts count. Yeah,
Pop-Tarts count. Again. What works for you? Some people love bagels and peanut butter and banana, chocolate chip waffles, those kind of things. What you don't want is something super heavy and something with a lot of fiber in it, those kind of things. For other people, they're more they're going to take in, if it's Tailwind, whatever they drink, they'll start just drinking that sports drink. and getting the calories in that way. You got to figure out what your stomach is going to digest. So now let's talk about a little taboo of a section of one of the things that you definitely want to do before you get on that course is you want to get up in time and get something in your stomach. And coffee works really good for this, but you want to get that digestive system rolling before you hit the start line. And
Plenty of time,
because you don't want to get out on the course and then have to find a porta potty and be waiting in line for a porta potty or whatever it may be. So, all these nutrition things, they go backwards into start. If you go the night before or the day before, I think we talked about this on the So You Want to Be an Ironman Part 2 podcast. Maybe we can put that in the show notes. You can go back and hear what you need to be eating leading up to a longer race. But find out what works for you. Like I'll eat half of a bagel about 2 hours before, and then about 30 minutes before I just start sipping on my sports drink. And that works for me going through. Another big caveat to that is find out what race you're running and what they're going to have on the course. And if you're going to use that, you need to train with it, because you don't want to get out there and start taking in a gel that you've never taken in before. And you had an experience with the gel. You had the jelly gel. Prashant gave him a gel, and it was like jelly, and didn't have anything to wash it down with.
Oh, yeah. You got to have something to wash some of those down with.
So I had the trouble with just the logistics of trying to take in a gel while you're running. I'd never done that before, and just trying to, hold your breath so you can swallow the gel long enough. Logistically, I wasn't thinking that through when I squirted it in my mouth. I thought, well, this didn't go for so well.
Now let's talk about the long run. So the long run is when you think about pacing for your long run, generally what you're looking at about 1 minute slower than what your race pace is. So let's say for a half marathon, you're aiming for 2 hours. Well, 2 hours is going to be a little bit over 9 minutes per mile. So your long runs are going to be in that 10-minute, 10:05 minute per mile pace. If that's what you're aiming at. That's what your long, slow runs, and generally that will kind of put you in that zone 2. It usually works out like that. It puts you in that zone 2 pace. So on your long runs, that's what you want to be aiming at. Anything else about the training runs or nutrition from you two? Another huge one. You've got to start taking care of yourself once you start getting into these kind of miles. What we call self-care. Your sleep, stretching, and then that eating, not just around the event of the half marathon, but all the time. And if you're going to be running a half marathon, getting into those kind of miles, if you've got 10 pounds to lose that 10 pounds. You'll be shocked at how much easier it makes it on you. Now, have you lost a lot of weight since you started running? I know you lost a lot when you started cycling that first year, but that was about 2 years ago.
Yeah, I've kind of held steady.
Yeah.
Held steady. Now, I can lose. Yeah. But I haven't. I've just kind of held steady at a good comfortable weight. So
it makes a huge difference. So if you've got some extra pounds to lose, now'd be a good time to do that, and just put good stuff in your body. Inflammation is a huge thing that people fight, and when you're putting a bunch of junk in your body, that's what causes that. Sleep. So talk about your sleep schedule, Hal. You said when I congratulated you on your race, you said consistency in sleep.
I have been a avid or rabid sleep tracker. Yep. And Jill can attest, and Clay sitting over there. What time do I get into bed? 7. Not quite that early. I try to get at 8:15, 8:30.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind too, I'm up early too. I'm in the pool at 5:00. Yeah. So I'm early to bed, early to rise. So, but I track my sleep.
Are you shooting for 8 hours?
I would love to have 8, but it's more like it's usually more like 7.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now this morning, I did not swim, and I got close to 9 hours last night.
Nice.
So,
How about you, Jim?
Yeah, I don't track my sleep like how, but yeah, I have found myself going to bed earlier since my runs have increased. I've just found myself, more tired in the evening, so I'm just naturally going to bed earlier. So I'm probably on that same lines. I mean, I'm in bed by 10:30. I hope I'm asleep, but I don't wake up till 6. I don't do much in the mornings. I'm still working from home, but so my wake up time is around 6. So as long as I'm asleep by 10, I'm that 8-hour mark. So
yeah, and a lot of things can go into that. Caffeine, that kind of stuff. I've noticed that if I'm drinking caffeine, on up into the afternoon, that it gets a lot of times I toss and turn. Staying hydrated, that's an important thing. There's sleep, there's some of the sleep aids can be a little iffy, but like melatonin, those kind of things are good as well. Keep your the biggest thing they say about sleep is if you keep your phone away from you and the blue lights from like your phone screens and that kind of thing, if you can keep those away from you, you're going to get into a deeper that REM sleep, which you could probably give us a thing on.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, that's another podcast. It's not this podcast. We got them now. I think we got a good one going now. Let's not jump into that. So, those are things. But stretching, taking 10 minutes after your run to stretch out and stay limber, keeping it's just longer miles, guys. It's just longer miles. The more miles you put in, more risk of injury. The more you've got to take care of yourself. So let's talk about this course. We got the Myrtle Beach Marathon, half marathon coming up. I've done this twice. Goodness, I think the 20 years fastest one I've ever done. It was like 20 years ago. Maybe it wasn't that long ago. Maybe 16, 17 years. I can't remember.
You're showing your age.
Yeah, I know. I was like 6 when I ran it, but it's the fastest half I've ever done. But then I ran it again and had some pretty interesting weather. So give us a rundown of the course. What you know about it, Hal?
Well, they advertise it as fast and beautiful. So it starts near Broadway at the beach at the Pelicans, Myrtle Beach Pelicans Stadium. I think all 3 races start there, don't they? 5K, marathon, and half marathon. So everybody starts together. This year, they have corrals, of course, and social distancing. So everybody will be getting the procedures on what to do there. Sounds like it's going to be a staggered start, but it starts there and goes south parallel to the beach, to the Myrtle Beach Market Commons. There past the International Airport. Goes into the Commons, makes a U-turn, and then comes back up, crosses over Highway 17, if you're familiar with Myrtle Beach, and then comes up Ocean Drive, parallel, closer to the beach, running north, and then looping back to where you started.
So it goes all the way down into like where the old
Air Force Base
was, which is, what's that called now?
Market Commons.
Yeah, Market Commons. That's different. It's better now than it used to be, and I think the word you use is fast and beautiful. I mean, you're at the beach, so I mean, hopefully the weather's beautiful, but it is fast. I mean, it is pancake flat. And if you're familiar with that area, basically you run down the business section of 7. You just run straight down, and then you're gonna run straight back. So it is a super fast race course.
And it was supposed to be in March, probably about the same time. I forgot when it was. Early March.
It was early March.
And then so it's been moved to May. So it'll be a little different with being in May with the weather and the temperatures. Maybe not as windy and rainy as it has been in the past in March, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, be careful what you ask for, because I mean, it could get down there and it be 15 degrees warmer than it usually is. But I did it one March. No, you know what? It may have been February. That thing may have used to have been in February. I think it was. You have to do your research on that. But we were down there. It was 30 degrees and raining, and I mean, that wind was it was miserable. That was not my fastest one, but it was miserable. And in fact, it was so bad. Back then, you could run I don't think they'll let you do this anymore, but you could run the full And if you got halfway into it and you just decided to, basically as you're running, the full just keeps on going. The half just takes a left and you're right at the finish line. If you just decided to go to the finish line, they give you the
Call
half.
it a day.
Yeah, they just give you the half medal. It was so miserable out there. I did that. I was like, I'm not. I got to get off this course as fast as I can. But hopefully if the weather's like it usually is in May, it should be perfect. Just
I
perfect.
think the wind
conditions.
might be the biggest concern, right? Right there at the ocean.
Right.
It's windy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
About half of it goes south, the other half comes back north. So
One
you're gonna
way-
be running against the wind for about half the race.
In one direction, you're going to have wind in your face.
Yeah.
Depending on which way it's.
I mean, hopefully it shifts.
Yeah, there you go.
When you get 6 miles
You're
out,
running
it
slow.
shifts.
Yeah.
Then it comes back. But Myrtle Beach, it's a fun place to be. So we're looking forward to being down there and running this race. So before we wrap this thing up, well, first, you guys have anything else you want to share about your journeys for this half?
Looking forward to it. It'll be a fun weekend.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Well,
Got a lot of
It's
people-
official now.
got a lot of
Hotels
people-
booked. I've registered, so
Got
we're
a lot of
going
people
now.
from Hub City going. So.
the last thing we do on these things is we got to throw out what are your goals? What are your time goals for the race? Jim, we'll start with you. Yours is going to be the fastest one,
Yeah, well, I want to do it under 1:45.
under
So
1:45.
that means I got to hit that 8-minute mile pace.
Yep.
Wow.
How?
Mine's not that quite aggressive. I'd love to do a 10 mile an hour overall pace.
Yep.
And that would put me right at 2:11.
2:11.
Yeah.
I'm shooting for 2:05. I did 2:07 in the Greenville half a few weeks back, and I want to try to get down under 2:05 because my ultimate goal by the end of this year is to be able to break 2, and which would I haven't done that in many moons. So trying to stay consistent with that. So 1:45, 2:11, 2:05. We'll have to come back and report on that. But just go back and listen. Listen to this podcast whenever you're running, whenever you just need to go back and make some notes on it. Don't overcomplicate half marathon training. It really is just putting one foot in front of the other, doing the smart things, and like we always say, if you'll do the hard things today, tomorrow will take care of itself.